On cold winter nights in northern Illinois, when my siblings and I were all ready for bed and cuddled under our blankets, our mother would read us the Little House on the Prairie series. If you're unfamiliar, the series is about a young family growing up in the woods of Wisconsin before becoming pioneers. It was written as a work of autobiographical fiction, as the author, Laura Ingalls Wilder, was retelling the events many years after they happened, and there was bound to be some events misremembered or missing entirely. The series was also turned into a TV show when my parents were growing up in the 70s and 80s, so it became special to my mother to read the books to us. Nowadays, the people at large seem to recognize the weird attitudes Wilder had about people of color, especially black and native people. But in the 2000s, when my mother was reading it to her small children, not so much. I bring all this up because this book series created an intense desire in my sister Rachel to chronicle her own life that she still holds on to a decade and a half later. The idea that we could read the events of a woman's life from over a century and a half ago was bewitching to her. She was determined to keep a diary almost religiously so that one day, maybe, someone would publish her own life. I don't know if that's why she still keeps it, or if it's just good therapy, but whatever it's doing for her, Rachel unknowingly creates, every day, page by page, one of the most sought-after kinds of historical document, a primary source. What is a primary source? Simply put, a primary source is a document that serves as first-hand knowledge or direct evidence of a topic of research. According to Harvard's Library Guide on Primary Sources, quote, often these sources are created at the time when events or conditions are occurring, but primary sources can also include autobiographies, memoirs, and oral histories recorded later, unquote. Some examples include, but are not limited to, speeches, manuscripts, letters, interviews, news film footage and articles, photographs, autobiographies, and diaries, but also creative works like poetry, drama, novels, music, and art. Even things like furniture, clothing, or buildings can be primary sources depending on what you're researching. Obviously, we're focusing more on diaries and personal journals here, but those are other examples. I'd like to argue that if you are able to document your life, no matter how mundane it may seem to you, you have the civic duty to do so. It's your responsibility as a member of society to record history, even if it's just your own history. Okay, you may say, but I'm not going through any historical events right now. Why would my writing be important? Even if you personally aren't going through what you would consider a historical event, plenty of the world is. Watch the world around you, whether it be listening to the news or conversations with others, or viewing with your own eyes. What do you hear about the crisis in Gaza, for instance? The human rights violations here in the States? What are the travesties your country is involved in? What are your thoughts? How do you feel? This is historical information just as helpful as ledgers and official manuscripts. The ideas and thoughts of the average person versus those at the front lines of crisis are very different, of course, in content, but they are of interest to different kinds of research. You and your thoughts matter, regardless of what it is you're writing about. It's all important to someone who's dedicated their entire life to a very, very niche topic you may have insight on. What would you say if you knew no one was listening? What are your most private thoughts and opinions that maybe you'd be too hesitant or insecure to share with others online or in public? What are your fears, your mistakes, your shame? What are the things you're proud of, even if it's as simple as choosing to eat something for breakfast? This is the virtue of a personal, private diary. Your private, personal thoughts are resistance. There's no government controlling your brain. There's no censorship in your written journal. There is also no form of internet decay that happens when you write in a pen and paper diary. There's no worrying about forgetting a password or the inability to use geriatric chat rooms. You can preserve this moment on paper, and if you store it right, it could be found hundreds of years from now and give historians a lot of insight into the thoughts and feelings a person with your intersectionalities and demographics may have. I journal, just in case someone reads my journals in the years to come and feels affirmed by the life I led being similar to their own. If I had read the thoughts and feelings of a fellow queer and trans teenager when I was going through my coming out shit show, I would have felt so much better. But we can't afford the same censorship to our journals as we do to public posts or blogs. There is no room for the version of ourselves we present online in our own journals too. Some authenticity must shine through, especially in a system that doesn't want it to. Here in the US, 79% of the adult population was literate of some way in 2024, according to the National Literacy Institute. While that's a depressing number from a country that thinks so highly of itself, it stands to reason that most people, here in the States at least, can read or write to some degree. Therefore, I'd argue, unless there are other extenuating factors like disability, you have the ability to keep a diary. That's not to say that there aren't some circumstances in which it would be made difficult to do so, especially if you want to journal the way Hobonichi girlies do. There's a lot of consumerism within journaling, especially if you follow the more popular bullet journal, Hobonichi, or Filofax routes. But again, it doesn't take anything more than a sheet of paper and a writing implement. You could write on the back of a receipt for all I care, in a pencil you got on the side of the road. If you even just write out your thoughts on printer paper that you've stolen from your work printer and stapled together, that's something. You don't need a fancy notebook with all the trimmings and stickers. If you do want that, go for it. I have a relatively nice notebook I journal in, because I'm a sucker for stationery. I'm not judging you. But there is something to be said about the pressure of having a system and tracking everything religiously that maybe isn't helpful or realistic for most people. However you do it, keeping a journal of your thoughts and feelings about the world around you is the important part. It can be as complicated or as simple as you want. It's a valuable historical source regardless. So to summarize, keeping a diary or a journal is our duty to history, regardless of how polished, literally or metaphorically, we make it, because our thoughts and feelings about the world around us are important to historical research of the future. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. And think about it. Maybe you should keep a journal.